How would you like to make your first million? Today we have Professor and educator Brad Poulos, and he has spent 40 years building, scaling, and studying a small business from inside out. So with that time, he worked in corporate roles, scale startup to number 8 on the profit list, taking a company public and helped launch and grow multiple ventures as founder, investor, advisor across telecoms, software, and cannabis industry. So Brad, tell us, what are the 5 steps you recommend entrepreneurs in order to make the first millions?
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
Sure. And this isn't, this is pretty much conventional wisdom in the entrepreneurship space, but you should start with a problem. So you don't start with a product. You start with a problem. You work from the problem out. And then what you do is you go and you validate. So you, first of all, you have a hypothesis. You think you know about a problem that's worth solving. So first thing is go figure out if that's true. Um, Go talk to some people that you think have the problem. And then the second thing about the second of the 5 steps would be then learn as much as you can about that customer. And you want to learn about the way that they experience the problem, but you also want to learn about themselves. You want to gather as much information as you can about them. You want to get the boring stuff like demographics, what age group do they fall into? What's is there a gender thing? Is this primarily male or primarily female? Um, does it apply to people in either a certain industry or people that have a certain hobby or that kind of thing? But you also want to find out the really important stuff, which is what we call the psychographic information. So that's their values, their beliefs, because those are the things that really resonate people later on when it comes time to start promoting your product to these people. You need to know what makes them tick. And so you have to do that upfront work. And while you're busy validating the problem anyway, then you should learn as much as you can about them. The next one is sell before building. So in the old days, I could tell you a story. Okay, back in the '90s, I actually convinced the board of directors of Bell Canada, the largest telco in Canada, to give me $2 million for a little entrepreneurial startup it was centered around the the first satellite-based high-speed internet product ever released in Canada, and one of the first in the world. And I wrote a business plan. The president of the company asked me to kind of take on this little project. Go write a business plan, Brad. See if there's a business here. And then I presented that to the board, and they gave me $2 million to work with right in the board meeting, like just right then and there. I didn't have to wait for approval. I made my presentation. They were like, "Yeah, sounds like a good idea. Here's $2 million." And guess how many customers I had spoken to when they gave me that $2 million? Zero, not one. But this was the '90s. This was before lean startup. This was before we sell before building. So you sell before building. You go and you go and wherever possible, get pre-orders, get some level of commitment. And then the next thing would be build simple first. So if you can build a minimum viable product, to use the vernacular of the startup industry, a simpler stripped down version of your product. And if you can sell that, that's a really powerful indicator that you're onto something, because if you can actually sell a product that doesn't fully solve the problem the way it ultimately will, and people will still buy it, that means you really, really have glommed onto something. And the other thing is, if you start loading your product up with lots of features at the beginning, you don't know which ones are appealing to the customer. But if you only have a if you have some theoretical product that only has one feature and people buy it, you found a feature that they care about. So then later on, you can make the product, you give it more bells and whistles. And then the last one, and this is the hardest one of all, make sure you have enough money to get to product market fit before you run out. So those would be my five.
So, Brad, one out of five, let's say 100 millionaires who interview in this podcast, one out of five are tech entrepreneurs. Uh, can you tell us what is the good, the bad, and the ugly of businesses? So people might be seeing this and might think, well, a lot of tech millionaires come to Harry Podcast, so it should be easy to become a millionaire doing tech. So can you tell us what the good, the bad, and the ugly tech businesses?
Sure. So, well, the good is that they scale. So that's, tech businesses scale. People-oriented businesses don't scale. You've got some idea for some service. You want to give more services, you got to go hire more people, and people are a pain in the butt. So there's that. So that's the good, right? The bad is that a lot of people want to do it. They can tend to be crowded spaces, but the ugly one would be that I have seen so many tech-oriented businesses that started with a product idea. Some engineer came up with some product that was desperately in search of a solution and spent in like I was part of a startup and I'm not super proud of this, but I was part of a startup about 7 years ago that spent I was only there for a few months, so in my own defense, but they spent 5 years building this product and never had a customer that was really interested in it. And that I've seen that happen so many times in the tech industry. I can think of another example where, people that are kind of close to me spent a significant amount of money in a couple of years, building a product that was just an idea of an engineer. And that's why I say start with a problem. Go and go find the customer that has that problem before you even think about building any kind of solution.
So, Brad, if these five steps that you share with us, which are the logical, and I agree 100% with every single one of them, you clearly know what you're talking about. Um, why again and again we have tech businesses failing because they change the order, especially in the part of MVP. Apparently, everybody remove the M, so it's not a minimum viable product anymore. They remove the M. They build the big elephant, exactly as you described. And then when they run out of money, resources, and they haven't sold anything, now they're looking for investors to sell it. So when we got a loss in translation, what happened? What do you think that is the cause of these steps that you're sharing with us today? Why, from where the tech entrepreneurs are getting the other series of steps that if you don't do it exactly how you describe it, is not going to work. It's not going to work. As
It's
simple as
because
this.
we don't teach engineers to do it that way. So now the university that I teach at, which is Toronto Metropolitan University in Toronto, Canada, we actually pride ourselves on having an entrepreneurial spirit throughout the entire university. And so our engineering students are actually taught about lean startup. So they have to take courses in entrepreneurship. And so I mean, I don't have any evidence of it, but I would suspect very strongly that we have fewer of those occur. I would encourage every single engineering or any sort of tech school, doesn't have to be just engineering, it could be biotech as well. Um, I would encourage them strongly to give their students a foundation not only in the science part of whatever their program is, but also in startup sort of startup theory, if you will, and teach them that you have to. I think the other thing that's going on a lot of the time is that it still permeates society, this notion that you got to keep your idea a secret. And I get a real kick out of people when they want to get some of my advice about startup. And so I said, well, tell me all about your idea. Well, I can't tell you all about my idea. And I say to them, well, let me tell you something. I've heard hundreds of
That's the
ideas
first
over the years.
problem. That's the first problem. You cannot market, you cannot tell to people.
Right. Yeah. And I tell them, I've heard hundreds of ideas across the span of my career, and never once have I heard an idea that I loved so much that I decided that tomorrow morning I'm not going to my job. I'm going to steal your idea and start working on that. I've never heard one of those yet. Right? And so the currency is information, the information that you get back from people, um, about whether or not you've actually found a problem that's worth solving, and all those other things. And now, let me be clear though. Like, if you've invented some cool technology, I'm not telling you to give away your patentable IP. And you can still tell people about the problem you're trying to solve, give them some idea around your product without losing your patentable IP. You just have to be smart about the way that you position it.
That the Do you think that the problem could be that, for example, in the 90s, you share with us that you share your idea to the board and you got 2 million, and the entrepreneurs still are reading about these stories and thinking that how it used to work back then is how it works now. Um, because, for example, this evolution, or tell us, because you have been in the evolution of the tech startup ecosystem. Tell us how was before and how is now, and what have changed.
Yeah.
So tech entrepreneurs have an understanding that whatever works before, um, it doesn't work now. Something happened in between. So if you can share with us.
Yeah, and it's not so much that it doesn't work, it's that it's very risky. So, so we used to do ready, aim, fire, and now we do ready, fire, aim, right? And the thing is, ready, fire, aim allows you to do lots of small experiments that are not that costly in either money or time. And we say, like, kind of fail often, fail fast, fail cheap. Of course we don't want to fail, but the idea is find out that you're wrong, make small pivots, small bets, small pivots. Um, and if you're actually onto a good idea, ready, aim, fire will work. It's very, very risky because most of the time you're not onto something and you're gonna have to pivot. And you don't want to spend 2 million before you decide to pivot. You want to spend 2,000.
Yeah, but out of the 500 millionaires that I interviewed, no one has come yet to tell me, Harry, look, you're not gonna believe. I create the product, and exactly as I created,
Right.
I sold it and I became a millionaire.
Right. Doesn't happen that way. No.
There is a
Yeah.
lot of iteration. So, Brad, tell us about your passion, about your story. Why you're so passionate about uh, tech and about uh, teaching the students and nurture them
Sure.
uh, in, in in the entrepreneurial journey. When I go to Mexico, they tell me, Harry, give a conference about for them to become entrepreneurs, because when they leave the university, we know that 50% they're not gonna have a job. So the other 50% have to create their own job. So, but Canada, which is a very developed country, right? That sense of you with your students to give them as much information in case that they want to become entrepreneurs, it's very impressive. So tell us your story. Why you're so passionate about it?
I love working with young people. So I've been part of an organization since my teenage years. I was in the organization. It's called Junior Achievement. It's becoming not as important nowadays, but back in my day, 35, 40 years ago, it was very, very important as because it was one of the very few organizations that was teaching young people about business. And I was actually lucky enough to be in the program, and then later on became a volunteer mentor advisor, and I've always loved being around young people. Business and technology is what I know, so that's what I can teach. So, um, teaching entrepreneurship is kind of at the kind of, if you think of a Venn diagram, and the overlap of what I know, what I love, what I can do, what people will pay me for. Um, this is kind of the sweet spot for me, and I get huge amount of energy out of working around young people. So that's why I do what I do. I frankly, I probably could have made more money if I just kept working in jobs and slaving away as a COO or a CEO. But the other thing is, I found I actually didn't. I really didn't like being a CEO that much because I don't like answering to people. And being a professor, you don't really have a boss, so it's an awesome job.
Yeah, and people are saying uh, out there that will be soon a company that worth $1 billion only in one person because of the use of AI. What is your thought? Do you
So
think it
I'm
would be
not.
possible?
You broke up there a bit, but I think what you asked me is it going to be possible for somebody to build $1 billion company by themselves
Like they said, just with the use of AI.
using just AI? Yeah. Hmm. I guess it's possible. Yeah. I mean, we're just starting. AI just hit the mainstream about what 3.5 years ago, something like that. We're just at the very, very beginning of this, the impact that this is going to have on business, and I don't pretend to know where we're going to end up. In some ways, I think it's a little scary, in it, like both for say entry level jobs. It's there's a lot of people that think it's going to have a significant impact there, or already has. Although I heard a stat today that so a lot of people were saying, AI is coming for your coding job. We're not going to need coders anymore. And I heard a stat today that there's more job postings for software engineers than there's ever been. So not sure about that. Um,
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
yeah.
It's,
So, but
it's about the people that you have, help them and teach them how to use AI that will amplify your company.
yeah, it's a multiplier, just like
Mhm.
computers were, just like machinery was back in the 1800s.
That's how I see it, as a multiplier, right? And
Yeah.
people, how about your students? Are they making doing good use of it in order to build startups? Or where do you think that AI is good? I'll tell you my own experience. My first business was in property, and to write a business letter to a landlord used to take a week because English is not my first language, so I had to find
Okay.
someone that speak, then translate, then I need to translate back, and the whole process take a week. And today, it takes 30 seconds, and it's very
Sure.
impressive. Way better result
Yeah.
than what it used to take me a week. So, what areas of AI do you think that your tech founders or your students can use in order to scale up their business to
Yeah,
get
it's
closer to global
interesting.
market?
It's interesting where we've come from because I can remember around the end of the fall semester in 2022, where ChatGPT had only become like it was released before that, but it only become in the mainstream a handful of months prior to that. And all of my colleagues, and even to me to some small degree, we're lamenting like what the heck are we going to do, they're all going to be cheating, and now we're actually mandating that they use AI, and they prove to us that they're capable of using AI in a smart, cogent, efficient way. So we've in a I think kudos to us that we in a fairly short period of time we've made that full swing. Now among my students, I'll say there's quite a broad range of capabilities. Some of them are quite savvy, and sadly, some of them are not that savvy with using it. And so, but that's probably been it was probably the same way with computers if we go back to the 80s.
So, what is the if you have to start a tech company today? What are the few areas that you think that would be a bigger market or more potential?
Sure. We always tell our students, look at trends. So we have the aging of society, right? We have shrinking population. We have the changing climate. This doesn't matter, it doesn't matter if you think humans caused it or it's natural. We know the climate is changing. So any time that there's a paradigm shift, everything kind of resets to zero, and that creates opportunities for businesses. So you just look at trends. How are things changing in the world? We're moving toward driverless cars. So that's going to create opportunity. It's also going to create massive disruption. The number one job category in North America is actually driver. More people are drivers than any other thing. So that's going to get massively disrupted. Now, really smart people will actually find opportunities in there rather than lamenting the loss of all these jobs. For some people, it's going to be highly disruptive, and I strongly suggest that those people start thinking about finding some other skills to sell to the world. But yeah, you start with trends. So
You can see in Miami, Florida now the cars driving by themselves in Miami, in Brickell and downtown. So they they just driving by
yeah,
by
well, in North
themselves with no
America,
one.
40,000 people die in car accidents every year in North America, and I think if we were to go to fully driverless, that number would come way down.
Oh, very impressive. And so, how universities can empower entrepreneurship, uh, which is a topic that I'm very passionate about.
Yeah. So obviously, like I teach in the entrepreneurship department of our school in the business school, so there's that. But that's only a very small number of the total students in our university. So there's other things that you have to do if you want to sort of spur on entrepreneurship in a broader societal level. At TMU. We actually have an incubator called the Digital Media Zone. And last year it was actually recognized as the number one university-based incubator in the world. And so that was the very first one. And we're very proud to say that it was actually two colleagues in my department, Sean Wise and Steve Gideon, that started it. And that spurred on 10, we have 10 incubators at TMU. So we have like the science discovery zone, we have the transmedia zone, we have the fashion zone, we have the legal innovation zone, we have the biomedical zone. So they all tend to be kind of vertically oriented as like industry oriented, and normally they're attached to one of our faculties. So that's a really important way I think that universities can help sort of create an ecosystem around entrepreneurship. We also offer free training to just you know the average person through a thing called Startup School, and that's for people that aren't part of the university. It's done at night by volunteers. I used to teach in it, and we offer these courses in lean startup and design thinking and all of these kind of concepts that are very big in entrepreneurship right now.
Yeah. I think that in the software development faculties and in the faculties of sales, marketing, because you see that studying 5 years to become software developers, and because they as part of the curriculum there is nothing related with entrepreneurship and how to be an entrepreneur and what is to sell a product. Some of them they go out there and without knowledge have an idea and think that there is a problem, and because the lack of background is the high level of failure, and not only failure, they take resources from family, friends, what they love, and goes down the drain because the the, the entrepreneurship framework is not there,
Mm.
and don't have where to go. So what are the biggest challenges that you see uh, for tech businesses moving forward? Because I read that software as a service, yeah, people are, they were sharing with me that the software as a service companies, they are a little bit down because of the use of AI. So now you can create your own software as a service solution tailored to your company. So on the other hand, I also hear that investors are very cautious in investing in tech AI oriented because big tech is there and they can replicate do it faster and better than you. This is if you have some traction, any big tech can take over very quickly. So what's the future that you see in tech? And if there is gonna
Well,
be room for the small entrepreneurs.
I think there's always room for the small entrepreneurs. Google buys one company every single day, right? So, and they're usually buying people. They're not buying a company that has customers or cash flow or any of that, right? So, so there's that, right? The innovation doesn't happen in big companies. Innovation happens in small companies, and then they buy that, and that's true across the board. Microsoft, Google, Apple, all of them. So, so there's always going to be room for the small, feisty little startup. It kind of depends on where you are, what the challenges are. So, like for example, if you're in the United States or Israel, access to capital is not that big of a problem. But if you're in Germany or Canada,
Or
you know,
London, where I live. I live
or
in
the
London.
UK, yeah, that's right. Yeah, access to capital is really a big issue because the investors are just so risk averse. They want to take all the risk out, but then they still want huge returns, and that's just not how the world works, right? So that's I think the biggest challenge because I live in Canada. I see the access to capital one being a big issue, and the real shame of it for us is that the really smart ones go to Silicon Valley.
Yeah, exactly. And in London, we have the a lot of projects going on. But when it comes to cash, I think that the approach versus US is that in London, for example, if a VC comes and is gonna give you 2 million, for example, he want you to make 10, and they had to figure out everything in order for you to make that 10, and that's the reason why they give you the money. Where
Right,
in US you ask for 2 million and they say, well, you know what? Let's make 1 billion. Let's go the way.
right.
Let me give you more, and let's make it. So it's a difference in I think in culture in mindset, but also in assets to capital. So why do you think is the reason for that? Yeah, we have US have a lot of unicorns, but United Kingdom I think is the second country that more unicorns have. So um, why do you think that there is such a big difference in access to capital?
It's got to be cultural. It's got to be a combination of the culture and maybe to some degree the education system. But yeah, like we people outside of North America probably look at Canada and the US and they think that oh they're kind of all the same, like oh yeah, they speak French in Canada, but other than that, they're the same thing. We're not. We're absolutely not. There are really significant differences about the way Canadians think, and
Absolutely. In terms of
we're just
culture, huge.
yeah, we're just more
Yeah.
risk averse. And maybe it's
United
because of
Kingdom, the same thing.
yeah, I think it
They're
might
more
be because of the way our
cautious.
country started. The United States was born out of a revolution. We were more of an evolution. So, but I actually don't know for sure why. It's just it's very palpable. And we have a
Maybe
small
because
sort
there
of
is more money in US.
well, for sure.
Well, that's, yeah, but just invest in US companies, no, they also invest in international companies. I think more exactly it's a more cultural thing. You have to say you need to buy a house in US. It's very quickly you find the money, right? They lend you the money quickly with the whether over there in London. It's even for the first time buyers, you have to go to this.
Yeah, and it's
Very
same here.
big amount, to purchase property. I think that this is the access to capital, which is, what's your opinion about this? Do you think that capital should be more able for entrepreneurs? Do you think that is a good thing to find the capital and and do a lot of due diligence and only employ capital in things that uh, companies that have the risk more mitigated?
Yeah, I think maybe the government could to make a few changes with the tax system that might make it a little more attractive for
Definitely,
people
that
to
will
take
help.
risk.
And with grants, for example,
That
right?
too. Yep.
Give them some space to the entrepreneurs to figure it out. So at the end of the day, the company succeed. The biggest winner is the government, right? The collector of tax.
That's right. Yeah, you got it.
So
They
at
always
least,
get their part.
oh, absolutely, yeah. So I think that the government, if they create the framework and give kind of grants to startups and for example, for the universities, right? So going grant the university, but those get more specific, like so what they relate that the university, that would be a good, very good use of the money. At the end of the day,
Yeah,
the more entrepreneurs we have, the better society works, right?
and shamefully, both in Canada and the UK, and I can't actually speak to this in the US, but the government isn't really that involved with, like, they don't give that much money to universities in the US. But in Canada and the UK, it's shrinking. Like, they're funding them
Mhm,
less and less all the time.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
Um, so
Why?
to me, in some ways, we're going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I think I'm not that there are no entrepreneurs. There is entrepreneurs, but the more I think that the more if you're a country like Spain, for example, that if you're gonna open a business, you have to pay a lot of money before to open it, and you don't even know if it's gonna work or not. So,
Right.
of course, people think twice how to open a business, and in UK, it's not the case. So in UK, you can open a company very quickly and operate very quickly. It's more dynamic. Uh, yeah. And so it's different.
Yeah, and here
So
as well, there's very little red tape involved in starting a new company in Canada. It's just access to capital is tough, but the government doesn't really get in the way of starting out a company. It's just I think they could do more to make it attractive to Canadians to invest in startups.
okay. So if somebody wants to know about you, how to find you, how this process works, can you share with me?
Sure,
Can you
like
share with the audience?
I have a website. It's
So it's like,
bradpoulos.com, BRADPOULOS. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm also on some of the other socials, but typically for business, it's going to be through either my website or LinkedIn.
thank you so much, Brad, for the podcast. And for all of you following the podcast, see you in our next episode. We want to talk how brave entrepreneur like that, like a wolf, achieve the first. Bye for now.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.